Hey everybody, let's see. It's almost 7 o'clock. All right, we are on and we're live. So, hi everyone. Not 7 o'clock, it's 6 o'clock. I'm used to being on at 7 o'clock, but now I'm on at 6 o'clock. Um, so, so yes, I finished the hat that I was working on. So let me get that out and show you the sequestration hat that I finished, okay? All right, here we go. So I think we spoke last week. There it is. My computer looks like it's acting a little funky. But yeah, so I'm going to be giving this to Joanne next week to wear for our parade in place. So what I did from the last time we were together is I sewed in this part on the inside, and I also glued it in. So even though on the outside is the kombu here, the inside has the buckram and the burlap for it. Okay, so we'll put that aside. So beyond that, you know, I'm kind of finished with all this. And I don't know, do you see my picture blinking? I see it blinking. I'm not sure why that it just slowed up. Okay. If anyone's out there, just let me know what you think of the picture, because I think my internet's kind of slow at the moment. So what Felicia was maybe thinking that I could do with everybody, since I finished work on all the stuff that I was making for the costumes, that I can give you a little more tutorial into how I keep a sustainable practice here in my own studio. Okay, so I'm going to show you some different steps and processes and pieces that I've been making using a whole range of detritus, natural detritus. And what I mean by that is collecting flowers and plants at the end of each season, their growing season, drying them out, and then pulverizing them into pulp. Okay, so, you know, to explain this process again, if you missed the very beginning um, of my live screens, is that the paper that I used to make the zero waste costume that I'm actually going to wear during the event, I made it by recycling an old linen tablecloth. So what I did was I took a tablecloth and cut it up into lots and lots of little pieces. Okay. All right. And had a whole bunch of that. There were 2 old linen tablecloths that I used. And after they were cut up into all these pieces, I then started to put them through my Hollander beater, which I'll show you again in a little bit, okay? And as the paper went through the Hollander beater, it got mashed up. But the thing about flax and linen, I mean, linen comes from flax, from the flax plant. They're very long fibers. And breaking down those long fibers can take a long time. So this was running through the beater for a long time. And these are just pieces that just didn't break down all that much. So eventually I will do something with them. We'll just find something later. But what I loved about the linen is it became so translucent. And I'm realizing I don't, oh, yes, I do. Aha, yes. So here is a sample of the paper that I made. And I don't know if you can tell, but it's extremely translucent, so you can see my hand through it, right? And so that's what I love about this paper. And then I'm also doing this project which uses watermarks. And so you can kind of see I have a watermark, and it's an image of a window that I'm experimenting with for another project idea. Is anybody out there? Does anyone want to comment and just let me know that this is coming out okay? Because it's really weird. It must be that just everyone's on the internet, I imagine. But so I wanted to really show you some actual pieces of the paper and how strong it is, right? But I wanted to show you a little bit of the background of other types of paper that I've made from recycling, or basically upcycling or regenerating materials. So I did a lot of paper earlier this year from coconut fiber. And this is where I was actually taking, let me get a sample of my coconuts. I was taking, you know, the coconuts where you get the young coconut drinks. That's the inside with some dried up coconut. And this was from Art and Paper. I gathered all of these coconuts and boiled them down and eventually made them into this paper. So actually, I realized I have a little book. I can show you that process. Okay. So, okay. So basically, you know, here was the original fresh coconut. And then what I did was I cleaned out those coconuts. You know, at first they started white. And then I boiled them in a pot, boiled them down to basically loosen up the fibers. And then I started to break them down and break them down and really getting to the source of the fibers. So here they're a little bit still full, and then here they're now practically shredded to the point of after they've been boiling and boiling and boiling, I then put them through my Hollander beater and started breaking them down into pulp. Okay. And so, and then, you know, here are some earlier samples of making something out of the pulp. And what I love is that translucency. It's so wonderful. So that means working with very thin sheets. So, so again, here was some of the coconut fiber. Some other fibers that I've used. One that I really liked was using daylilies. So this was, I've got them packaged now. I'm also selling these if anyone's interested. They're not cheap, but $2.50, $5 a sheet, $3 a sheet. I don't know. We can talk if you want to buy multiples. But I'm just going to start putting these online to sell as well. But here I was working with daylilies and let's see. Oh, and here's one I really liked was papyrus, using papyrus plant. And you know, papyrus is the plant from which we get the Latin word for paper. And that was actually made a little differently than the paper that I've been making. Okay, so let's go over and look at some of the other stuff that I have here. Let's see. So just to show you some of the collecting that I do, so you see the raw material. I took out some bags a little while ago, last fall. I was collecting corn husks to make corn paper. And so I still have a whole giant bag of corn. I was collecting this from the local farmer's market. But then I also picked up some corn husks, you know, for tamale as well from my local market. So basically the corn I boiled down and went through my Hollander beater, and I have some pulp, some corn husk pulp. So what I'm going to do is set this up, and I'm going to remind you again how I make a sheet of paper. Okay? So, all right. Water. So this is my vat that's filled with water and my corn husk fibers. Okay? And I'm going to spin those around. Now here is my my mold and my decal. The mold has a screen on it, and the decal has nothing inside. It's just like a frame. Okay? And what I want to do is I want to wet the surface of the mold and decal, because paper making really involves surface tension, and surface tension is created with water, because water has a very high surface tension. Now, let's see. So I have to get my screen wet, but I also have to get my surface wet. And that's why I'm spraying my Pellon with water. Okay. Okay, and so now we're going to make a sheet. So what I'm going to do is bring my molded decal down into the water, go down and up, and I capture the fibers inside my mold and let the extra water drip out. So if I bring this closer, you can see the fibers on the screen. Okay, and I'm going to take my decal off. Okay, and what we're going to do is the couching, which this should work now. So, you know, there's my fibers on the mold, and I'm going to bring the mold down like a door. I'm going to close it at an angle and give it some pressure, and there's my sheet of paper transferred from the mold to my Pellon. Okay? So that's my corn husk paper. And then eventually, I think we're going to make some other sheets. I'm going to make a sheet of the linen that I did. So let me prepare for another sheet to go down. So that was the corn husk paper that I made a while back. Now we're going to do of our linen. Okay? Now the linen takes a little while to drain because it has much longer fibers. And the fibers are much more saturated with water. And so this is why it takes longer. The water for the corn husk came out pretty quickly. But when I go down and into the linen, I actually am putting it on these sticks to slowly drain out because it takes a while. Okay? So I wanted to show you some samples of a new project I'm working on. We'll let that drain out. And I've been experimenting, and I think I'm almost there with this idea I have. I am interested in, with our time of being secluded, I'm really interested in, doing a book with people's thoughts about being inside and having to look out at nature versus being in nature. So this is my window view of the park kind of diagonally across the street. And then here's my window frame, and I have corn husk paper on the outside and the linen paper behind. And in front is a stencil of my plants. So I'll come over here and show you that view. Okay? Essentially. And so if any of you are interested or watch this, I certainly would love to get a photograph of your view from your window. And eventually I'm going to put these together into an artist's book along with different thoughts and what people have during this time of being in isolation, having to live like we've been living. So that's a long-term project that I'm excited about. I just ordered some supplies for that too. So I think our paper has drained enough now. Let's see if it's thick enough for me to cooch, because I was having trouble cooching it before, but we'll see what we can do. Okay. Alright, here's the ultimate test. If this thin stuff will transfer easily. Oh yeah, there we go. There we go, a nice sheet of paper. And I also I use a watermark in my paper. So it's my initials, MB in the Bronx made. Michelle Brody Bronx made is the logo. So those are our two sheets that we just made, one from corn and one from flax. Okay, and now I'm gonna just get a felt to put on top, and I'll show you again how I go into the press. Hey Lucrecia! So tell me if there's any weirdness with the picture, Lucrecia, because it seems to be blinking from my end. So I don't know quite what that means, or if that's good or bad, or if that comes out at your end. So let me know. Okay, and I'm on my own again tonight. So this is my press. Okay. Now you can also press by hand very easily, but which is what I do a lot too. But basically, I'm going to take a sandwich of the paper that I just made, and oh, good, there's no problem. Okay, it's not flickering at your end because it's flickering here. I'm going to place that inside under my press, and now put that down. And we'll leave that being pressed for a while. Oh, hey, Pedro. Hi. So I hear you're going to wear, well, which costume are you wearing again? Climate Consequences, right? Yeah, you love that costume. That's you, baby. All right, so press that down nice and hard, okay? And then we're going to leave that for a little while. So that was paper with corn and the linen. I wanted to show you some other paper sources that I've worked with. This is a piece that I had worked on. It's not the best version of it, but it's working. You can barely see the image, which is a set of trees. And this piece was really made with this stencil here. Okay. And the paper I was using, the yellowish paper or beigeish paper, is actually made from, where'd that go? Oh, here. From this Japanese shade grass. And so here's a sampling of the shade grass. Oops. Okay. And what I did was I broke that down after they cut it for the season at Wave Hill. Broke it down, and then here's the raw pulp, okay, that I made from the grass, and then here's a sampling of the paper. Okay. So, that's to show you this process. Now, the paper I wanted to start making today for this new project, I'm going to make sisal pulp. Okay? This has already been pulped for me. And it comes from sisal, which is what I used in the costumes as well. So I used the sisal in the sequestration costume to tie the roots for it. So sisal comes as a rope form, a very rough twine, basically. And it kind of really looks a lot like, let's see, like a big stalk. So this is actually from cattails, but twine really just comes from a stalk, which is then broken down and made into the pulp. Okay, so normally what I would do if I was working from the raw fiber itself, I just showed you a sampling of cattails. So this is also from cattails that I collected last summer. And my pot wasn't big enough, but I basically boiled down the cattails, which is basically a similar kind of reed plant as sisal is made from, and boiled it down. Now, if I wanted to start making the pulp from this, I would then add it to my beater and shred the fibers. so that they would break down very easily in my grinding machine. But that's going to take a while. And so what I decided to do for tonight for this other project I'm doing is to use some of the sisal pulp that's already been made. I just need to rehydrate it. Okay, so let's go over to the my Hollander beater, but first I'm going to get some water. Okay, so let's set you guys up here. Okay. Get you a good view of this. No, this pole is in the way. There we go. That's not bad. Okay, so this is the Hollander beater. I'm not sure if I showed you this before, but inside the Hollander beater are these grinding wheels, this grinding wheel, which turns, okay? And it has sharp edges here and sharp edges below that basically pull the fibers through to break them down, okay? And I'm going to keep this on top so that the fibers don't fly around everywhere. And I'm going to take a section. This is 2 pounds. We're going to take a section and dip it in water. And that's going to start to rehydrate the linter, as we call it. Okay? And I'm going to tear those off. Okay? And what I'm going to do is tear this into small pieces, okay? Now I'm going to start making some noise with the blender, but I want you to see how it pulls the fibers through to break them down, okay? So it's all, what it's doing is the grinding wheels are shredding the pulp down. Now, by me turning this, this brings the grinding wheels down closer to be able to grind the pulp down more. Now sometimes in the beginning I've got to sort of help the pulp along because it's kind of heavy when it's going through. And so it doesn't quite make it around the block, so to say. See if I can put some more light on for you guys to be able to see. think I need more water also. So I do this all in my kitchen. So thankfully I haven't had to walk too far to get to my studio like some people I know. So I can just get up and start working. There we go. Now the water is kind of getting kind of cloudy because of the fibers going around. You can see how they start to move. So I want you to notice how I put the paper down and it starts to float away. That's the current that's being created by the wheels turning. I think it's better without the light right on it. So that kind of grinding noise, the heavy one that you hear, that's if the wheels hit too big a piece of paper, and that's why that you hear that sound. But you can still start to see how the water is getting cloudy as the pulp is breaking down. And the whole idea here is that you're masticating the fibers. And by masticating them, you're rehydrating them basically, and you're swelling the fibers with water. And that's what helps keep the pulp floating and then connecting to one another. There are tiny, tiny, tiny little hairs inside, and that if you think of paper like Velcro, all the fibers sticking together when two surfaces touch. It's pretty much what holds paper together, are the fibers themselves. And some fibers are better than others, because most of our paper, a lot of it, we always say comes from trees, wood pulp. And that's a very cheap kind of paper to make, in the sense that they're very short fibers. So they break down faster, but they use a lot of chemicals in that process. A lot of chemicals, because the fibers are very short. And so you can produce a lot of pulp from your materials. Whereas our money from the United States, we use rag paper. And that paper is actually made from cutting up actual cotton rags or linen rags. And that makes a very, very strong paper. But it takes longer to make, because you need to break the fibers down that had been woven. They're not raw fibers. And that's like what I did for the zero waste costume. And it's made from the linen, broken down, versus from the raw material, like the sisal, would be made from the raw fibers. So I'm just going to finish up getting all the paper I need here. Try and give you a different view. So here is where you can see the inner gears are moving. Alright, so that's really turning into pulp there. Okay, so we'll leave that going for a while. Okay, I don't know if anyone has any questions. What I'll show you is another kind of paper that I've made. It's called Kozo paper, and it's made from mulberry trees. And I did this out in Brooklyn. If you were watching from the very beginning, this is a piece that I made using, and it comes from the inner bark of the mulberry tree. Okay, so this is the inner bark, which we boiled and broke down eventually into fibers, and the stripes, the light stripes, are what's made from the Kozo paper. Okay, all right, so I wanted to show you that, and I wanted to, it's not a very positive piece, but I was working a lot earlier this year with the images of the maps of the Electoral College. So I have this map of the United States. Right now it's backwards because that's the bottom up. But I've been collecting images of the spread of the virus. This is kind of like my COVID-19 project. Also, was looking at the maps. Let's see if I can get this angle right. There we go. And this is from March 17th. So this is shortly after we all shut down. And so what I'm interested in showing with this piece is, here's New York and the tri-state area where more of these seeds are growing. These are flax sprouts in flax paper, okay? And this is part of my process that I do. I grow the sprouts inside the paper. So if we're looking at another earlier piece of mine up here, let's see. It's a little dark, but that's all the roots of the plant. Those are the roots. I'll show you another piece that I did a while back. What you're seeing is not hair or drawing. It's actually the roots of the flax seeds in the paper. And so that's been a process of mine. So depending on how I lay the seeds down is how they grow. So my hope is to, when these seeds start really growing, their roots are going to migrate below and capture. It'll be sort of my way of tracing, of contract tracing, how things migrated across the country and how this virus migrated so quickly. And I was looking at, it's hard to see on this map here, but they actually have the interstate highways. And I noticed how in the early days of the pandemic, it was located mainly in cities that are along the interstates. So this is Route 80 going across here. And look where it is in Colorado. And then Route 90 is up here with Chicago. Okay, and then, so I found that very interesting. And then probably with Seattle, you have Route 5 that goes all the way down and up and down the West Coast. So I think that's really fascinating to follow. And so that's what I'm trying to interpret with the with these route drawings that I do. Okay, so I'm trying to think what else we have. I think what we'll do now is we'll take our paper out of the press. Okay, and I'll show you how the press helps and keeps the paper together. Okay. Isn't that a great sound? It's a wild sound. Okay, so let me get myself set up. Let's see. So we'll take our felt off, and this is all for cushioning and also absorbing water. And the pellons are there as a surface. No, I don't know, we'll see if this works. Probably should have been under for a while, but there's my paper. This is the linen. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dry them under tension, under pressure. So I'm going to take these blotters and lay them out. And I'm going to transfer the paper from the pellon onto the blotter to collect the water. Okay. All right, so there's my paper. Put another blotter on top. And then I use these big pieces of, these really thick pieces of cardboard to, basically I put up a fan and the air runs through the parts of the cardboard. Okay, and so now let's get our corn husk sheet. Okay, there's our corn husk. I love the texture of it, you know? And we're going to lay that down. Transfer it. And I can even, it's pretty strong. I could pick it up. Mm-hmm. And put another sheet on top. Some more cardboard. Okay. And then normally you would put this into a press, but I don't have that set up here. So let's see, what we're going to do is, oh, space is still tight. So I have a big sheet of plexi that I use to just even out the weight. And I basically put in a big tub of water on top. And that gives it some even pressure. Okay. And then what I do overnight is I set up a fan. And the fan blows down on in between those layers of the cardboard to dry out the paper. And you need to dry it under pressure, otherwise it starts to buckle and shrink. So that's the thing about paper, is that it needs to, as it's drying, like anything, it will contract. Okay, so let me show you just at the end some of the more materials that I've used to make into the paper. Okay. Let's see. I wanted to show you the lavender paper I made. Okay, so this is the lavender, and you can kind of see the imprint of the lavender stems in there. So that was made with lavender. It's very very translucent. You can see my hand through it, right? Then so another thing I didn't really show, but I save all of my tea leaves from my loose leaf tea that I make, and I eventually make that into paper. So this is oolong tea paper, and it has a tea leaf logo for its watermark. So I don't have too many of these around. I actually have a whole bunch of tea just waiting to get ready to be made into pulp. I'll do that. Maybe that's a summer job. Okay. But here's the tea, also a little more rough. So it's not broken down as much, but there's the actual tea leaves kind of mixed in with the pulp there, and here also mixed in there. Okay. So nothing gets wasted in the studio or in the home. It becomes used for something. You know, these sheets that I sell, I know that some people have used them for backings, for framing pictures or drawings. They can be used as cards. They can just be a really special little gift. When my aunt died, I was cleaning out her things in her studio, and there was a piece of paper in her drawer that I had made, and it was labeled Michelle's paper. So, you know, just saving the sheet itself, because, you know, paper is something that's not really a part of our culture as much. I mean, we're trying to save using paper. We're trying to prevent the constant deforestation that we're doing for paper. And, you know, that paper, you know, which is, you know, if I just, my printer is over here, you know, I'll just pull out that, you know, that sheet of paper from the printer, and, you know, this is what wood pulp makes. And it's not very sturdy. It's what we call acid full. So if you've ever gotten a book where the pages really, really yellowed and they're very crumply, that means that the pH balance in the paper wasn't right, and that's how it breaks down. So I don't really do that per se in my work, because I introduce the organic matter all the time. It's not the most preserved. So this is a question I get asked a lot with my work, is that, will it break down? Will it change? Will it brown? And it does. But that's the essence of the work. It's still living. It's always alive. It's always moving on to another phase. And, you know, that's what life is, you know. It's always changing. We've had to get used to a whole new change and way of living here now, right? So, yeah. So we're gonna start. I think I have to go live one more week, and then May 9th is gonna be our parade in place. So you've been getting some information on that, and on May 9th from 1 to 1:30, we're all going to be live streaming and showing off our costumes. And then I think we're also going to be uploading a series of videos of everybody dressed in their costume and explaining what that costume means. Because every costume and every puppet that we make represents some educational aspect about the environment, or about how we're trying to save the environment, such as, I wonder if they'll be wearing the bioswale costume, or if Gaia is going to come up. And bioswale is about filtration of water and capturing runoff water in natural environments. And then Gaia, she actually wears a skirt that's based on the idea of a natural filter. And so each one has its own connection and meaning, and that's what each of the costume wearers will be explaining in the video, which I think is a really good thing. I think that'll be a really great archive for us to have for the next series of pageants that we can show volunteers about, so that they really know, because sometimes people come and they put on the costumes and don't always know what it's about, or where and why this was made. So I think having these videos will be very, very helpful for us to explain what was the impetus behind the making of them. So, Hannah, if you hear me, don't be afraid to ask me what each one represents that I've made. I mean, certainly Felicia can explain some things too. But sometimes in the process, how I make things is very particular as well. So why don't we finish off by taking one last look at the pulp that we were making? Okay. All right, it's looking good. Yeah. So I like how it has this really nice natural yellowish color. Okay. I'm going to bring the grinders down a little bit more. And how you know how long you should bring those down really depends on the pressure that you feel. Okay. I just heard the grinders touching each other, so I think that's the lowest I can go. And then we'll just hold it in that place for a while. Okay? All right, everybody. So thank you for joining me, Lucrecia and Pedro. And we'll see you soon for the pageant. Pedro, especially let me know where you and Rosa will be parading in place, whether that's the Bronx or in Brooklyn, so I can get you the headdress for Rosa. Because I know that's something that Anastasia will bring down. If we don't have to bring it to 6th Street, I can direct her to drive it and bring it over to you in the Bronx. So let's work that out. Okay? So everybody have a happy night and go cheer. And I think there's going to be a big musical event happening for the cheering at 7 o'clock tonight. They're going to be, you know what? Why don't I stay on till 7? I'm going to open up my window and let all of you hear, because, you know, up in the Bronx, they're cheering too in my area. So I'm going to set that up so we can hear everybody going at 7 o'clock. How about that? I think that'll be a treat. It's very special. It really is. Okay, I'm just setting the computer up by the window. Okay. Okay, I see some people coming to their windows. I'm going to open up mine further. No, it's been a rainy day. Okay, so it's still have 2 minutes. Want to see my plant collection? There's my little plant collection here. We've got jade and jasmine. The next one is a friend of mine. I'm just taking care of it. Another jade, and we have Christmas cactus and an aloe and a praying plant. Oh, it's starting. nice to share that with you. Ah, this is a wonderful old bell. Okay, good night, everybody.